Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Due to the fact that this year is about to end, 2021 went by so quickly. However, we have seen a lot of international football. Particularly in Europe, we've been seeing the Euros, obviously, and the World Cup qualifiers. And now that we're not going to be seeing any more international football for the rest of 2021, I figured to rank each and every one of the European countries. We've got 55 in total here, and I'm on the Tier Maker website, as you can see. Now keep in mind, I'm ranking these teams based on their 2021 performance. I'm not looking at their history from years ago. I'm looking at how they did in 2021. Did they exceed their expectations? Did they meet their requirements? Or did they do a lot worse than expected? If you have any disagreements with me, let me know in the comments below. But without any further ado, let's get into this tier ranking list I made, starting with Andorra. Now, obviously, none of us are really expecting much from Andorra. They only managed to get 2 wins in the World Cup qualifiers, and both of those wins were against San Marino. And San Marino are still looking for their first win. It kind of feels wrong to put Andorra in the F section because we weren't expecting much from them in the first place. I'm giving them a D ranking because obviously they could have done more, but at the same time, what more could they have done? You know, it's Andorra. If they were to get a loss against San Marino, we might have had to put them in the F place spot. But I think D for this side is fair. But now moving on to Albania. Now, obviously, we didn't see Albania in the Euros, but we saw them do some bits in the World Cup qualifiers. They didn't qualify for the World Cup or the playoff spots, but they hit third behind Poland and England, only behind Poland by 2 points. Honestly, not bad. They put off decent fights sometimes, and honestly, some of their squad is looking promising. Not necessarily a successful year for Albania, but one where they can look back on and have belief that they can improve in the future. It's definitely a B or C ranking for Albania. They beat Hungary twice in a row in the World Cup qualifiers, which was impressive, but I think them just getting short from qualifying for the playoffs just made it not enough for a good grade, so I'm going to give them a C. It's not bad. It's still satisfactory. Lots to be positive about this year, but still much more room for improvement. Now for Armenia. This side went on an impressive streak in the World Cup qualifiers, but then just totally dipped in form. We're looking promising for a bit, honestly, and then it just all collapsed for them. Look, I'm sorry, Armenia, but it's just not enough. I think it's definitely between giving them a C or a D, but if we're giving Albania a C, I think Armenia gotta get a D ranking. I'm sorry. Maybe if they were in 3rd instead of 4th in the World Cup qualifiers, we'd be giving them that C ranking. But yeah, good luck in the future, Armenia. Now for Austria. Austria obviously were very disappointing in the World Cup qualifiers, but we also saw the Euros happening this year, and they were actually fairly impressive there. Lots of people, including me, doubted them. They made it out of their group in style, and unfortunately, they had to come up against Italy in the round of 16s, the Euro winners. And you know what? They put up a very impressive fight against them, taking them to extra time, Italy scoring then. Austria scared Italy by a lot. People were expecting Italy to cruise through them, but they definitely made them struggle. If Austria did better in the World Cup qualifiers, I'd be giving them a decent ranking. But because they finished 4th, even behind Israel, I'm gonna have to give them a C. C is a good place for them because it just balances out their Euro success and also their World Cup qualifier disappointment. Now for Azerbaijan. This side in 2019 and 2020 actually pulled off some decent results, but in 2021, they only got 1 draw in the World Cup qualifiers, 0 wins, 7 losses. Sorry, Azerbaijan. I feel like you could have gotten at least a win or 2 there. I'm giving you an F. Better luck next year. Now, for Bosnia. I talked about Bosnia in a lot of my videos, guys. They really collapsed at the end of this year. But earlier, there was some hope for them. They pulled off some interesting results, drawing to France 1-1, but despite that, it obviously wasn't enough. Finishing 4th, just only in front of Kazakhstan. I really hate to do Bosnia dirty, and we're clearly not on a good start with this video overall with these teams. It's either a D or an F. I might have to be harsh and give them the F ranking. It's honestly a compliment though, because I expect a lot more from the Bosnian national team. They just keep falling short at the very end. When the hope is there, they just collapse. We saw it last year also in the Euro qualifiers. They made it to the playoffs and then lost to Northern Ireland on penalties. But yeah, it breaks my heart talking about them. Let's just continue. Let's move on to Belgium now. Now, Belgium, obviously, we all know they got that golden generation, and the hopes of them winning a title with them are just decreasing every single year because a lot of those players are aging a bunch, losing some of them as well. Obviously, some in their prime, such as Lukaku and De Bruyne. I'm honestly surprised they're still 1st in the FIFA rankings. It's hard to beat up Belgium too much, though. Even though they didn't win the Euros or anything, they did get knocked out by the champions of the tournament. And in the World Cup qualifiers, they didn't lose a single match. 6 wins, 2 draws. I will give Belgium a B grade because, yeah, they're expected to win something, but they're still putting off good fights in every single competition, proving that they're one of the top sides in Europe. So yeah, I think B is fair for them. Now we move on to Bulgaria, finishing 4th in their World Cup qualifier group, right behind Northern Ireland by 1 point. Honestly, not a bad fight, but we're not seeing much from them really. Did hold off to the top teams at 1 point though, but still, I'm gonna give Bulgaria a D grade. Now for Belarus, obviously not the favorites in the World Cup qualifier group they were in, but only being able to secure 1 win, not good enough. F ranking for Belarus. Damn, this list is not going too well so far. Hopefully we see some A rankings and some more B rankings. Oh, actually, we're about to. Switzerland. Switzerland were absolutely terrific in the Euros. They beat one of the favorites for the competition, France, knocking them out in the round of 16s very early on. Then they had to come up against Spain in the quarterfinals and nearly beat them there. They had to go to penalties. In that competition, I think they played in the most exciting match. And obviously in the World Cup qualifiers, they topped Italy, qualifying for the World Cup automatically. Not something everybody expected. Switzerland, I think, is the most underrated side in Europe right now. They're not scared of anybody at this point, and I'm definitely giving them an A ranking. What a year for Switzerland. Obviously not winning anything, but qualifying for the World Cup in style, and then making it to the quarterfinals in the Euros, having to face very tough teams. This side deserves all the credit. Now for Cyprus. This side finished second to last in their group, sharing the same amount of points as the last place team, Malta. Cyprus were looking better before in qualifier runs, actually sometimes putting off good results. I definitely think they fell off in form, and unfortunately, they deserve an F ranking for this video. Now for Czech Republic. This side was actually very impressive in the Euros. We saw possibly one of the goals of the tournament from their striker. He played an impressive role. They knocked out Netherlands in the round of 16s. A lot of people are expecting Netherlands to go a lot further in the tournament. Their World Cup qualifier run was okay. They finished 3rd. They qualified for the playoffs anyway due to their Nations League performance, but they were only 1 point behind Wales, so you know what, that 3rd place spot wasn't even terrible. I'm giving Czech Republic a B ranking. They've definitely had some great moments in 2021 that they can look back on with success, and we'll see if they can qualify for the World Cup next year. Now for Germany. Now Germany finished 1st in the World Cup qualifier group, but that was expected. They were the clear favorites in that group. They were upset in March though by Macedonia losing 2-1. Regardless, they picked it up though. In the Euros, they were in the group of death and they just survived it on the last match day. And in the round of 16s, they lost to England. It was one of England's most triumphant wins in the tournament. Obviously, Germany being a top side, they're expected to do a lot every single year. This year wasn't a complete loss though. They had a few slip-ups, but overall they're still proving that they're a top side, and now people are expecting a lot more from them in 2022. I'm giving Germany a C. Could have been better, but I think their year was satisfactory. Now for Denmark. Also another extremely underrated side in Europe. Obviously early on in the tournament the side was looking doubtful after the Eriksen scare. They picked it up at the end though, getting a massive win against Russia in the group stage, and then they absolutely bossed the knockout stage, making it all the way to the semi-final where they just lost to England, and it was a super close match. And then not to mention the World Cup qualifiers, they bossed the entire group. They nearly didn't concede a single goal as well, but then on the last 2 match days they did, to Pharaoh Islands and then Scotland. But still, it's very impressive, finishing at the top by a fine margin. Denmark 100% deserves an A. Now for Estonia. Put up okay fights from time to time, but it obviously still wasn't enough. 1 point in front of Belarus, second to last in their World Cup qualifier group. Nah, I gotta give him an F, I'm sorry. Now for Spain. Spain's an interesting one. Spain were looking very questionable at some moments this year, but then they turned things around in style. At the beginning of the Euros, everyone was questioning if they could even make it out of the group due to their poor finishing overall. They were obviously experimenting a lot. They had pretty much a whole new squad, but they made it out of the group stage at the end. Massive win against Slovakia. Bossed it in the knockout, scoring lots of goals there. Unfortunately beating Croatia in a very exciting match. Then beating Switzerland, and then losing to Italia in the semi-finals. Decent run from Spain. And in the World Cup qualifiers, Sweden were topping them for a bit. And then at the very end, Spain came out to take back their first place spot on the final international break. Honestly, massive credit to Spain. Despite those slip-ups, they're still proving to be a side that fights till the end. I'm giving them a B ranking for sure. Honestly, you could argue that they deserve an A. If they were a bit more consistent throughout the year, I might. But I think B might be fair for them, because there's still a lot of expectations in the Spain squad. I don't blame you if you think they deserve an A though. Now for Finland. Finland just falling short on qualifying for the World Cup. And in the Euros, they didn't make it out of their group stage, unfortunately. I definitely think there's some room for improvement for Finland. But at the same time, they're proven to be a side that's not afraid to fight. It's either a C or a D ranking for me. Since they put off decent fights in the Euros though, and they just fell short in the World Cup qualifiers, I will give them a C. Now for Faroe Islands. Honestly, expectations for this side are very low already. They did get one win in the World Cup qualifiers. I could give them that D position because I was pretty generous for Andorra, but they also have nothing to show off for. I'm going to give them an F. Might be cruel, but yeah. Now for France. As talked about, France bottled in the Euros. So Switzerland in the round of 16s. But you still got to consider the fact that in the same competition, they topped the group of death. Not by much, but they did it. And then they obviously topped their group in the World Cup qualifiers. And you know, you can't rule out their whole year based off of that one Switzerland match. I know it cost them the competition, but that match went to penalties. It's not like Switzerland blew them out or anything. Oh shoot, but you know what? They did win the Nations League. I feel like they deserve an A or a B. An international trophy is an international trophy though. It's not the Euros or anything, but I'll give them that A spot. It's a close call though. Now for Georgia, this side finished second to last in the World Cup qualifiers. They got 7 points though, and they managed to beat Sweden on match day 9 of 10, which massively affected their first place spot. Can't live off of just that match though, but you know what? Fair play to Georgia. No massive success, but the fact that they were to pull off a pretty big upset, I'm giving them a D. Now for Greece. Now Greece are definitely not looking the same as they once were some years ago. It was hard for them to compete with Spain and Sweden for a World Cup spot. Still getting 10 points. I don't know, Greece is a tough one because it depends on how you want to look at it. Are you optimistic about the success that they had this year, or are you disappointed in how they've been playing lately? I might have to give Greece a D rating because 2 wins, it's just not enough. Now for Croatia. I thought this year wasn't bad. You know, there were a decent amount of slip-ups, questionable moments for sure, but Croatia fought to the end, similar to Spain. In the round of 16s, we got knocked out by Spain, but we still put up a very good comeback, which could have been true, but then Spain won in extra time, obviously. So yeah, we got out of the group in the Euros. Some people were even doubting that we could even do that. And in the World Cup qualifiers, Croatia got top of the group. Some shaky moments, yes, but they did the job at the end of the day, battling hard with Russia. It's a C or a B for Croatia, depending on how harsh you want to be on them. Considering that they lost some of their key players from the World Cup, and they got to adjust to that for sure, and even some of those key players that are still playing are aging a bit, but I think Croatia did pretty decently, so I'm going to give them a B rating for 2021. Now for Hungary. Hungary, yes, they finished 4th in the group of death, but they put off amazing fights against every single team. Portugal getting the biggest win against them, but still, they didn't score all their goals till the very end. They drew with France, and then against Germany, that match was wild. Germany was almost a team to get knocked out automatically. Unfortunately, it had to be Hungary. And then the World Cup qualifiers, they dipped a lot. They were pretty disappointing there. I was expecting a lot more from them. Still an underrated side though. And they did face with that Szoboszlai injury. It's definitely a tough one. I wouldn't consider this year a massive loss though, even though they didn't qualify for the World Cup. And also, even though they finished below Albania in the World Cup qualifiers, I think it's a similar situation towards them. Not much success this year, but they put their name out there in the Euros, and they can easily be hungry for more in years to come. So you know what? I'm going to give them a C rating. Now for Ireland. Ireland had a horrible start to the World Cup qualifiers, and then they bounced back at the very end. So things are hopeful for them, but overall this year, I still think they were a tad bit disappointing. Serbia and Portugal were clear in that group. It was a tough task for Ireland in the first place, and even though they ended the qualified campaign on a somewhat positive note, if we're looking at the whole year itself, it still wasn't good enough from them. I'm going to give Ireland a D because I think they have a lot of stuff to still improve on. Now for Israel. Israel, based on their World Cup qualified campaign, was actually very impressive, finishing above Austria, still not qualifying for the World Cup, but they were not the favorites at all, and finishing over a side like Austria is very impressive in the first place. They obviously weren't expected to qualify for the World Cup, so you know what? I'm giving them a C rating. They can definitely improve in the future. Now, for Iceland. Man, how Iceland have fallen. I've talked about it before. Euro 2016 underdogs, qualifying for the 2018 World Cup, finishing first in that group over Croatia. Man, I was salty about that. And then in this World Cup qualified campaign, they finished second to last. If you're comparing to the Iceland years ago, you'd expect a lot more from this side. I'm sorry, Iceland. Years ago, you would have been an A, but now You're going to the F category. Take it as a compliment though, it means I expect more from Iceland. Now for Italia, obviously the Euro 2020 champions. But these guys fell short to Switzerland in the World Cup qualifiers, making them have to go to the playoffs. But it's not like they're eliminated from the World Cup yet, even though it could happen. And they didn't even lose any matches in their World Cup qualifiers. They just drew a lot. Since they won the Euro 2020, it would be pretty criminal to not give Italia that A ranking. I think they fully deserve it despite their little slip. They're still a top side, and without a doubt had an incredible year. Now for Kazakhstan. This side finished last in their group, but they definitely weren't the favorites, and they put off decent fights from time to time. Definitely altering the group quite a bit. Besides getting destroyed by France at one point, I'll give them a D. I'll be nice to the Fighting Borats. Now for Liechtenstein, they got one draw, but overall they got smashed nearly every time with 9 losses in the World Cup qualifiers. Yeah, sorry Liechtenstein, you're getting an F ranking. Now for Gibraltar, this side got no wins or no draws, finishing last in their group by a fine margin. I'm giving them an F. Lithuania, 1 win in their group, but still bottom. Yeah, I'm being harsh today. Look at all those Fs. Now moving on to Luxembourg. Luxembourg just fell short at the end, but they put off a very good fight at the beginning in the World Cup qualifiers, upsetting Ireland. Fell short at the end, but they still got 3 wins in the qualifiers. I definitely gotta bless Luxembourg a little bit, although they finished 4th. Much better than most people expected. I'm giving them a C ranking, because that is just such a massive underdog. Getting wins like that, bravo. Now for Latvia. This side definitely made their World Cup qualifier group interesting, very much impacting the results for all these teams. 2 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses. They didn't lose in half their games. Similar to Luxembourg, I think Latvia deserves some credit. Despite not finishing high, they scared all of the top teams in that group. They're getting a C ranking. Now for Moldova, only being able to get 1 draw, sometimes putting off okay fights. Maybe I was a little bit too nice to Andorra, but I'm giving Moldova an F ranking. Now for Montenegro. They finished 4th in the World Cup qualifiers, but they put off good fights, even scaring Netherlands at the very end. It made it so the final match day, anything could have happened for Turkey, Norway, or Netherlands. Netherlands managed to do it at the end, but they're still the favorites in this group. It's either a C or a D, depending on how generous I want to be. Might have to give Montenegro a C, you know? I could see them surprising a lot of people in the Nations League. Maybe I gave them too low of a score there. They have some positives to look at for this year. Good luck to them. Now moving on to Macedonia. Ooh, Macedonia is struggling in the Euros obviously, but the fact that they made it to that competition was already impressive. In the World Cup qualifiers, they got the World Cup qualifier playoff spot, which is also extremely impressive. Bravo, Macedonia. Considering how underrated this side is, I'm gonna have to shoot high and give them an A ranking. They really exceeded their expectations. Many people probably weren't expecting them to make it to the World Cup qualifier playoffs. The likelihood of them qualifying for the World Cup in their tough path isn't high, but still decent year from Macedonia, also upsetting Germany 2-1. Gotta give it to them. Now for Malta. I actually gotta give Malta a D. But at the beginning of the World Cup qualifiers, they got a very interesting result against Slovakia. Put up good fights from time to time. Better than just getting straight losses. 5 points at the end. Bravo to them. I think a D is deserved. Now for Netherlands. Netherlands is a tough one. They obviously qualified for the World Cup, but like I said, they did get scared a few times. Expectations were kind of high for them in the Euros, and they fell short in the round of 16 to Czech Republic. I'm going to give Netherlands a C ranking. Overall, they did pretty decently this year, despite that Czech Republic disaster. Now for Norway. Norway just fell short at the end for the World Cup qualifiers, but they had to come up against Netherlands and Turkey, and it was close. It was all down to that last match day. Giving Norway a D is pretty cruel. I'm giving them a C ranking. Now for Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland definitely influenced how their group went down, being the last team to face Italy, drawing with them 0-0. Which sent them to the World Cup qualifier playoffs, finishing in a group where it would have been a miracle if they got 1st or 2nd. I'll give them a C. Now for Poland. They made it to the World Cup qualifier playoffs. To be honest, they weren't exceptional in the Euros though. It's gonna be a C. A D is way too cruel, because overall they're still proving that they're a side you can't mess with, but the Euro performance was disappointing from Poland. But hey, we'll see what they got in March for the World Cup qualifier playoffs. Now for Portugal. Definitely one you gotta question. Obviously, we know this side fell short to Serbia in the World Cup qualifier playoffs, which is a huge upset for them. That definitely brings their rankings down. And in the Euros, they got knocked out in the round of 16s, but they were paired with Belgium. And Belgium are a fantastic side. They only lost 1-0. This year wasn't necessarily a total failure from them. But everybody's definitely expecting a lot more from Portugal because their squad has improved significantly. Lots of talent all over popped up after their Euro 2016 win. You'd expect them to win something again, and now they might not even be in the World Cup. I don't want to be too harsh and give Portugal a D. They still had some great moments this year. C-. Though, damn, we put a lot of teams at C, but yeah, I think it's fair. Now for Romania, another C team. They nearly got the World Cup qualifier playoff spot, and then they just choked at the end, but they still put off some impressive performances. Lots to look forward to for the future. Now for Serbia. Serbia obviously didn't participate in the Euros, but we got to give this side so much credit for getting first in the World Cup qualifier group over Portugal. And in terms of that, we got to give Serbia the A. They defied a lot of odds out there. Not many people believed in them. Now for Russia. Russia made it to the World Cup qualifier playoff spot, just losing that first place spot to Croatia. Didn't do too great in the Euros though, not even making out of the group stage. Oh, so many teams in the C rankings, but it's only fair to put them there. Now for Sweden. Sweden just slipped from getting that first place spot in the World Cup qualifiers, and they would have gotten an A ranking if they got that spot. And in the Euros, they did very well in the group stage, but then collapsed against Ukraine. Sweden slips at weird moments, but overall, very impressive side, proving that they're very underrated. Lots to look forward to in the future. I think Sweden deserve a B ranking, honestly. Now for Slovenia. Finishing fourth in their group, but they shared the same amount of points as Slovakia. This side could be talked about a lot more because they have some great talent, but they just don't gel well together as a unit. I might have to give them a D ranking. And for Slovakia, you know, same situation. Yeah, they got third, but they tied with Slovenia on points. Getting some questionable results from time to time, including to Malta. For now, it's a D ranking. I think they have a lot to improve on. Now for San Marino, still struggling to get their first win. If they were to get at least one win, we'd put them higher, but for now, it's an F. Turkey, horrible Euro performance. World Cup qualifier run, they did redeem themselves though. If they didn't qualify for the playoffs, I'd be putting them a lot lower. For now, I'll give them a C. They were one of the most disappointing team in the Euros, but they really did bits in the qualifiers. They looked like they were down and out at one point, but they came back in style. Now for Ukraine, I might have to rate Ukraine pretty highly actually, because they made it further than I expected in the Euros. They ended up losing heavily to England in the quarterfinals, like 4-0. But the fact that they made it to the quarterfinals was impressive. They didn't lose a single match in the World Cup qualifiers. They're in the playoffs. I'm giving them a B ranking. Now for England, this side was very impressive this summer in the Euros. Making it to the final. Say what you want, but that's an achievement on its own. And then they obviously topped the group in the World Cup qualifiers. I think it's an easy A. Now taking a look at Scotland, they got knocked out in the group stage in the Euros, but put good fights against every single team. They made it to the World Cup qualifier playoffs. Scotland have a lot to look forward to in the future. I might have to be generous and give them a B, even though they didn't make it out of the group stage in the Euros. We could be seeing them in the World Cup. The squad's looking like they're massively improving. Fair play to them. Now for Wales. Wales made it out of the group stage in the Euros, but then they lost in the round of 16 to Denmark. They got second in the World Cup qualifier playoffs. Lots of people are doubting the side as well, as their best players are not in their prime anymore. Since many people doubted them and they're still competing with the top teams in Europe, I'm giving them a B ranking. And finally, Kosovo. Sorry, Kosovo, you're getting an F automatically. They simply did not deliver. Like I said, they were very impressive in the past, but now finishing last in their group. But they're all just not delivering together. Hopefully in the future, hopefully in the Nations League in the next qualifier run. But for now, it's definitely been disappointing for them. Well, guys, there you have it. Those are my final rankings. If you have any disagreements with me, let me know in the comments below. This was a long list, so there were definitely waves of moments where I felt generous, and then there were moments where I felt like I needed to be harsh. Like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. Take care, logo noite.